Hello and welcome to the 70th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I am joined by a man who Verizon screwed out of $10, my brother Rob.
Yes, indeed.
What's up, man?
Not much. I got my coffee here, and yeah, I will be giving them a phone call right after we're done here because I don't like Verizon much anymore.
The lawsuit is pending.
Don't get me wrong, Fios is fun and fast, but man, if every other inch of what you want to do with Verizon isn't like, well, clearly you have to give us $3 if you want this. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it sounds like their on-demand experience was not quite Comcast level.
Yep, paid $5 to watch a movie on my standard def, and it didn't work. Came up black, and then I was like, okay, so maybe it has to be in high def. So I went downstairs to my HD TV, turned it on, first thinking like, okay, it'll just show up as like replay or something, and it's like, no, you have to spend another $5 if you want to watch it on a different TV, of course. Why would I, if I paid for it, have to watch it? Okay, so didn't work either on the HD TV, so I ended up running out to Blockbuster, and it turns out it's cheaper to rent it at Blockbuster. So I was like,
ouch.
There's no reason why I would ever want to do this again.
But this was mere hours ago, which I have to give you props because this is the movie that we're going to be reviewing today. And you were a real trooper to pay $15, $20 total, whatever it ended up being, just to see this thing. So this is a pricey review. That's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. But hey, episode 70.
70.
The show has turned 70, and I have turned 30, as illustrated by this very large birthday card that Mom and Dad sent me. And I'm going to open this thing up for you here.
Oh!
And then Amber's mom sent me this. It's do you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah, the X-Files thing.
It's a card that says subject is older but appears to be the same age.
I think that the larger ones sound better too.
Oh, dude,
it's kind of weird.
I meant to say that. Yeah, the audio fidelity, like it actually scared me when I opened it because it's like, I mean, it's just the speaker inside this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to take this card apart. I know Matt was telling me he actually took a bunch of these apart and like glued them to his refrigerator. I guess you could like, because it's a magnet, so he has a bunch on his fridge that he just like tweaks and they all play the sound or whatever when he opens his fridge up. But sorry.
The technology, I think it actually kind of uses the paper of the card even as a sort of speaker. I know, for example, that the new DSi came out.
Oh, yeah.
And when you open that thing up, like just the packaging to open it up, Nintendo has outdone Apple here in the fact that it opens up and suddenly there's applause. And I think there's like camera flashes, like you see like a mirror, but there's like sparkling, like, yay, you've purchased our product.
Like, if you don't know that's coming, that scares the crap out of you. I don't know. It just, I didn't expect, I mean, you can feel that it's thick, but I didn't expect that fidelity, like I said. So, anyway, that is the goings on.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into some geek news. Every week we like to pick our favorite geeky news story and bring it to you, the listener. This week, Rob, what was your favorite news story?
Well, definitely something that caught my attention while I was just watching television was there's a new Sprint commercial out. I actually think there's a handful, maybe 2 or 3, advertising them as the Now Network.
Right.
They show statistics going up and down with like these neat graphic representations, and they're like, right now, 500,000 people are being dumped via text, and it's really kind of fun and comical, but the big thing that catches my attention is that at the very end, they say America's most blah, blah, blah 3G network, now bringing you the first 4G network. And they roll over 3G to 4G. And then they zoom out and they show the Palm Pre. Throughout the entire commercial, all the cell phones in everybody's hands are Palm Pres.
Yeah.
Just like, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me that 4G is coming out soon, and that, as this commercial seems to imply, the Palm Pre is maybe a 4G-enabled phone? Question mark?
That's exciting, and it sounds to me like it's the first television advertisement for like the Palm Pre. We talked about it very excitedly on our CES show, but that is the first I've heard of 4G.
Right. The only 4G service out there, I think, currently only exists in Baltimore as like an experiment.
Right. Well, that's the thing is like when you told me this, I was all excited and I went and I Googled 4G and I'm like, oh, what's 4G? And I was surprised how little concrete information there actually was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about Sprint's 4G plan and how they're spending $3 billion to build the 4G network, but how it's sort of unclear, what that will mean, what the speeds will be. Like different carriers are tackling it differently. And what they were saying was, theoretically, it could be in excess of 100 megabits per second, which gets me excited for sure, because then you're talking about video conferencing or streaming of high-quality audio over your phone.
Right.
Which is my holy grail. Like, I've told Amber, guaranteed I will not buy a new cell phone until there is one that streams audio, like over the web, like over the network. Something like Rhapsody, and I know we've said that before, but that's really what I'm looking for, and it sounds like until 4G is in place, there just isn't the network strength to do that.
Yeah. Well, I do know that Palm has advertised Pandora for its phone on the Palm Pre. So audio buffering maybe isn't that difficult to pull off. I'm imagining that with 4G, probably the reason why it's so difficult to quantify is because it merely stands for fourth generation.
Exactly, and that's what they keep saying is there's no single standard of 4G. 3G is very specific, but 4G is kind of like this idea. So when Sprint is selling it, it's like, I'm sure it's more marketing right now than it is reality, and that's a little bit depressing. But
I'm betting that they're probably trying to build this as something to compete with Wi-Fi itself.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it raises some questions like, why is there an advertisement out now if this is so far away?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you raise awareness in your brand, that starts to creep into the zeitgeist, if you will. But yeah, I think it's going to take a good while. A lot of the figures that I'm seeing are like 2015, and things like that before there's like a full nailed down standard.
So maybe it'll possibly hit the market soon, but just like specific cities.
That's what it seems like. Of all of the carriers, they're the best positioned to do this.
Right.
Which always surprises me, because I don't think of Sprint as one of the big ones.
Well, they used to be. I think they're trying to reclaim a lot with this deal.
Yeah, but hey, if they have the Palm Pre and 4G, first, that could be a powerhouse. So we'll have to wait and see, and I know that's the depressing ending of every tech geek conversation. But it is true, and I mean, there is some information out there, enough to get some excitement drummed up here.
Yep. So that was basically my news story. I mean, there's a lot to be said about it. But, Brad, what was your favorite news story this week?
Well, this one just amused me, so I'm going to have to bring it up for the sake of that. You probably saw this, but Lego Rock Band was announced.
It was?
Yeah, it totally was. Harmonix and Lego teaming up at last, ? Two great tastes? I don't know. But it's basically being billed as Rock Band for the whole family. It is a music game. However, you're going to be able to create your own Lego band and customize your crew and all that kind of stuff. One of the songs that was announced that I thought was pretty cool was Carl Douglas's Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting, which is the ultimate song for knocking a song out of your head. If you ever have a song stuck in your head.
Sir, I beg to differ. There's a song that can even knock that out of your head. And that is, We Built This City.
Oh, geez, I think you trumped it, yeah. Well, you would know.
Anytime,
you're the music major.
anytime.
Yeah,
you have something stuck in your head, just sing that to yourself, and you'll have that instead.
Yeah, just drop that nugget into your cubicle at work and just watch the fire spread. But yeah, so anytime I see two totally unrelated licenses collide, it reminds me of the time that we were in Best Buy, and I don't know if you remember this, but we stumbled upon the DVD of American Pie Presents The Naked Mile. Do you remember that? And we were just laughing to ourselves because we were like, since when does a movie present another movie? You know? I remember at the time we were blogging about it, and I just pulled up some of those old dusty blogs, and I thought these were amusing enough to share. So these are some possible other unrelated licenses colliding, a la Lego Rock Band. So first one is Ferris Bueller's Day Off presents The Punisher.
Yeah.
Patch Adams presents Escape from New York.
Always a good one because there's the patch involved.
Yeah, for the technology buffs, I know you like this one. The iPod presents The Fast and the Furious, John Madden. And, of course, Star Wars presents Star Trek. So watch for those.
Indeed.
But, kidding aside, yeah, this is Lego Rock Band is announced for PS3, 360, Wii, and DS, and it's coming out holiday of 2009 this year. So
now, do you think this is a kind of a counter release for them releasing the Beatles Rock Band? Like, they maybe feel like they're leaving out kids?
Maybe. I think the Beatles music's pretty universal, but yeah, I mean, like I said, they're billing it as a family experience. So I think there's definitely a lot of songs in Rock Band that parents might be wary about their kids singing. There's a heavy metal.
But still, like, Song 2 by Blur is one of the songs listed in here.
That's true, like, yeah.
I don't know.
It is a pretty tame song, though, if you think about it.
So What by Pink?
Yeah.
She's still a rock star. She's got...
But, I mean, I look at that in the same way as, like, the Kids Bop version of Pink,
that'd be great if it was all like Kids Bop versions.
Yeah. Oh, Hanukkah.
And I gotta admit, the Final Countdown by Europe, especially appealing.
That's the one that has a lot of even skeptics, saying, "All right, I'm looking forward to it." And there's been mixed reactions, from gamers on this, from what I've read, but. Yeah. They don't seem like licenses that have anything to do with each other. It'll probably be good because both of those companies do great games.
Yeah.
But I just found it amusing, and so look for that this holiday.
Indeed.
And then hopefully We Built This City.
That would be a great song. Very family friendly.
Dude, I love that song, and I remember.
And also White Rabbit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. Oh wait, are you talking about Cream or are you talking about?
I'm talking about. Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship. One pill makes you larger.
Dude, that's a great song too.
That is the same band that did We Built This City on Rock and Roll.
That's so weird. Yeah, but didn't they change from like Jefferson Starship to Jefferson Airplane or?
That's when they changed to Starship. They started off as Airplane, but then to keep up with the times, they changed to Jefferson Starship. Yeah. But then I guess Jefferson left, and so they just became Starship.
And then
now they're just Ship.
But no, I love Feed Your Head or whatever it's called. White Rabbit. But yeah, okay. That is altogether geek news. And so let's move on to our main topic of discussion, a movie that cost you dearly to watch, and that is Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler. Whew. Now, I realize this is out on DVD. This is not a new release. So normally we try to do stuff in the theater. However, this week the only thing in the theater is the Beyonce Knowles vehicle Obsessed. So I think this is probably the best choice that we could find. And admittedly, this is a movie a lot of people put in their top 10 of the year. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to our top 10, neither one of us had a chance to see it at the time of recording. So this to me is a good thing to view now. It cost Rob dearly. And The Wrestler basically comes from, as I said, Darren Aronofsky. He is the director of Pi, Requiem for a Dream.
Oh.
Yeah. The Fountain, starring Hugh Jackman, if you ever saw that movie. Mm-hmm. And so this movie stars Mickey Rourke as Randy the Ram, a kind of Ultimate Warrior-ish wrestler, kind of like mixed between that and like Randy Savage maybe, who was once really famous and is now sort of feeling the sting of being washed up. To give you an idea, there's a scene where he actually plays a wrestling game with his character in it, and it's from the NES.
Yeah.
So, Rob, what did you think of The Wrestler?
Well, I mean, definitely Darren Aronofsky's stamp of style is on here, especially in terms of the minimalist budget, you could say.
Yeah.
As soon as you said he directed Pi, it all kind of came together. I'm like, oh, wow.
Right.
Because it's that sort of pseudo-documentary style. Like it's as if cameras have been running day and night on whatever, and they just capture the good moments and edit those together. Even the way like the editing jumps, even though like the action is kind of being fluid.
There's a lot of shots following Mickey Rourke from behind his head.
Yeah, I liked the cinematography. I feel like for the purposes of this story, as much about the human element as it is, really kind of real. There's not much spectacle here. So right. Just for that sake, it was a really good choice. And beyond that, musically, very little, but what was used was very good. Like there were moments of just a simple guitar coming in, making a moment a little warmer, and then also something that I think you may have noticed that I thought was brilliant. There's a sound effect that is kind of the sound of aging, or the sound of when there's a problem, you hear this sort of high-pitched like feedback almost.
Right, in his ear, like a ringing.
In his ear. And they subtly first start off by kind of letting you hear that because he wears he
has a hearing aid, basically.
He has a hearing aid. And when the movie first starts off, he just puts his hearing aid in, and you kind of hear that, and that's like the sound of him putting his hearing aid in.
Yeah.
But later, it really serves as the sound of like him breaking down, like just what his own age getting to him.
Oh yeah, like you really see the physical toll that wrestling takes.
Oh yeah,
on just a body,
Absolutely, and kind of how not fake it is, even though it is fake, because it is so dangerous that you can't do it for real and have people actually like succeed and live lives with it. You have to have some degree of control with it, and that's why they do what they do. At least that's the feeling they give you this movie. I actually have to admit I respect wrestlers more. Because this movie, these what used to kind of be like these clowns and these laughing stock jokes, like for as cheap as entertainers as they are, like they really
go all out.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see a lot of how he placed the fans over everything, basically. I mean, his own body, his relationships, all that stuff. The fans and sort of like their approval seems to be like the only thing he has almost.
Yeah.
So it's a really like a hard luck story, and I thought Mickey Rourke was basically born to play this. I mean, he's that leathery. I don't think anything that you see there is fake.
Very possible. He's in really good shape for a middle-aged or over middle-aged. I can see why he was nominated. I think he won the Golden Globe.
I think you're right.
For Best Actor. So that definitely was well-deserved. The emotional ranges in this that he jumps through, really good.
Yeah. Now, you said you had sort of laughed at wrestling in the past. I'll have to admit, I also have laughed at wrestling, and even, sad to say, wrestling fans, because growing up in Pittsburgh, you see this a lot where dudes wearing the Undertaker shirt and stuff, and you're just like, come on, man. There's got to be better things to like. And like I always used to say, if it's fantasy, then let's have some helicopters or something. Let's have some ninjas like chopping watermelons in half. If it's really fantasy, let's go all out. But even feeling that way, this really held my interest because the behind the scenes of wrestling is really fascinating. And, they show sort of the conversations that wrestlers will have, and they're very friendly with each other, and everybody that I've ever met that has run into a wrestler, and I think I saw The Rock once in a Walmart parking lot. No, it was Sam's Club. We were coming out of Sam's Club. I swear to God, The Rock was walking out. But anyway, you always hear that they're incredibly nice, And he's always, all right, brother, let's do it, brother. Then we'll go have a beer. Even when they're supposed to be villains in the ring, they're real friendly opposite. And I loved seeing that dynamic. And I love, the little things like the razor they tapes to his hand and stuff. And dude, the staples.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore. That's all I'll say. And so, as much as I'm not a wrestling fan, do you think wrestling fans, this is like their like porn, basically? I mean, this movie, I imagine, it feels like it's a love letter to the fans.
It really kind of is. If I were a wrestling fan, I mean, obviously I would be drawn to the movie. But it's definitely more sentimental and heartfelt than maybe a wrestling fan would appreciate.
You think so?
Well, as long as they realize that it's not about wrestling, it's about the wrestler.
There supposedly is a real documentary, Beyond the Mat, I want to say.
Okay.
That's really fascinating about wrestling, if people are interested in more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to admit to being really moved emotionally, not during this movie, but something that's very similar to this movie. I saw Ric Flair retire. There was like a video of him retiring, and here's a guy that I always kind of made fun of. He's real leathery, he looks like a piece of meat, and he's smiling at his fans. He has white hair, and the guy was just, he was doing his last hurrah. He was doing his last show, and it was video footage of it. But he was walking through the crowd, and he's just grabbing dudes and hugging them. He's putting his head up against another fan's head and just, crying, and they're crying, and I really got emotional watching that. He was basically done.
Yeah.
And if you've seen Rocky Balboa, that's another excellent sort of just tribute to the fans,
Yeah.
And if someone had made a movie like this about Star Wars geeks or something, where it's just like all sold out for the fans, I think I would be blown away. And I mean, really, it's hard for you not to get moved as somebody who puts that much in. I thought that, coming from that perspective, this would be a real great movie to see.
Yeah, it is essentially what one would call a coming-of-age movie. Even though most of that term is associated with teenagers, like learning about themselves and, discovering who they are, this is about a guy coming to terms with who he is, with what age he is. I kind of am interested, Brad, in knowing, like, you just turning 30.
Right.
Was there an aspect to it for you, like, where you're kind of realizing just who you are? Because it's not in any way worse. It's that you're a different guy. You're not this, you're that. And it's like, for coming age with teenagers, they're not kids anymore.
Right.
They're teenagers, So I really think that was an interesting thing about this movie. And so what do you think about that?
Well, and it's funny. It falls right on my 30th birthday that I watched this. And I will say that, you still see yourself a certain way. I think especially guys struggle with this, where they see themselves as handsome to younger women, especially, You reach this point, like, other people almost have to push you along into the season of life that you're supposed to be in,
Yeah.
And it's very easy from the outside to look at, like, his character in this movie and be like, you're done, you're washed up. But if you're inside of that body, you're still telling yourself that you're a spring chicken, or that you're whatever. And, like, sort of time hits you and reality hits you. And in this movie, literally, like, life smacks him into realizing what age he is and everything.
Yeah.
It's powerful. I think it's definitely relatable on the human level. Animals would not at all relate to this movie.
No. I wouldn't recommend it to them. I probably wouldn't recommend this movie to a younger crowd.
Yeah, and on that subject, I think there's two small caveats that I would give. First of all, if you have a problem with strippers in your movies, this one has a lot.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where I watched it with my wife, and there was a lot of uncomfortable glances, and she was even like, "You're corrupting Rob," because I was the one who suggested that we watch this, and I was just like, suddenly like, "Oh no, this movie's playing out."
My girlfriend came along and covered my eyes. She's like, "Oh, this is what my hand's for," like.
Yeah. So if that's something that bothers you in movies, this does have a lot of that.
Yeah.
The other small thing, and this is a very small thing, is that it is fairly open-ended as a film, and if you're a person that really needs closure, it's not there necessarily.
Yeah.
I think this is a great movie for discussion, and some people find that really frustrating. But those would be my only two things that I would warn people before they go into it. Otherwise, if you have a girlfriend with a hand, I do recommend it.
I think that this whole movie, a lot of the theme throughout it is about kind of virility and youth being lost. And I think from the women's perspective, it's like being a sex symbol or something like that is slowly going away, and you have a life left over.
We haven't even mentioned that Marisa Tomei is in it as this stripper character. She turns in a great performance. She was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She is one of those actresses that I thought had just sort of gone away, and she's like doing better work now than ever. I definitely think that while it's a simple story, it's one that's very engaging. I was never disinterested. Good film for the aging. Good film for the wrestling fan for sure. And so that is The Wrestler. Yeah. Now, would you say in the end that this might fall into somewhere in your top films of last year?
Personally, no. I don't think it is. Maybe because it is
subject
matter. It's more sentimental in a thinking film. And right now, I guess that I'm more drawn towards movies that are fun. I don't know, just that's because right now, so many ends being untied, trying to move my own life forward. I kind of don't want to see that in a movie.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But that's probably on a selfish aspect.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that is The Wrestler. And before we close out our episode, we always like to get a little nostalgic and reminisce about growing up geek. This week, we talked about the Lego Rock Band game. But there was a time before every rhythm game had plastic guitars. And I thought we should share some of our favorite memories of old school rhythm games, such as Busta Groove, Parappa the Rapper, Karaoke Revolution, even Dance Dance Revolution, which I know has 900 iterations. But the early days, let's just throw out some, maybe starting with Busta Groove, some great, early memories.
Well, did it start with Busta Groove? Well, I know always there was that.
Well, there was Guitar Freaks, and there was
there's a drum thing at the arcade. Yeah,
a lot of Japanese stuff. In fact, that's the thing I remember most is these early rhythm games were mostly like J-pop soundtracks. DDR had a ton of Japanese techno, and Busta Groove. I love the Busta Groove soundtrack, but it is really Japanese, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Busta Groove, I think, was firstly it was a dance-off game.
Mm-hmm.
You have two guys, right, going at it. You select your character. It's like a fighting game in that respect. But what happens is the music is playing and you're keeping a beat, but you're only required to hit the final beat on time.
On the controller. Yeah, there's no like dance pad for this, even though it is a dancing game.
Right, you're going to hit circle, square, X, or triangle, you know.
Right.
But then the more success you had, kind of the bar would like tilt in your favor and the camera would move over to your guy and the other person would be slipping up, and it was pretty fun.
I can remember like girls coming over at like some sort of big party that we were having at the house and like coming into the room and we were all playing Busta Groove and like people gathered around and I felt as if we were all like dancing for real, like having a dance off.
Yeah.
Even though there's, it was the cheesiest, most early kind of bop, 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 blam. But the characters on the screen, like when they would do the solos, I would get all into it like, oh yeah. And I would think people in the room probably think I'm awesome, Meanwhile, who knows what they think. I'm not dancing. I'm sitting there tapping, lazily on a controller, but love Busta Groove.
That's always been the staple of rhythm games, is that people in the room should think you're awesome when you're playing them. These days with Rock Band, it's a little more kind of assured. I've had people shake my hand after finishing.
No, it's more of a one-to-one now. Like now you're actually doing physical motions in front of the TV.
Yeah.
At this time, you were just like laying there in the sort of fetus position, like tap, 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 blam.
Yeah.
I did see a YouTube video of a guy cosplaying as Heat, the character with the ski hat, and he came up in front of the stage and just stood still, and then they played the Kitty N, I would never ever run away. He's doing like the popping and locking on the stage, and people are like going nuts, and I was like, now that's cool.
Such cool music in there. And to this day, it really hasn't been much of a breakdancing game genre out there. I'd like to see them bring it back. That'd be kind of a cool thing, but we absolutely cannot talk about rhythm games without talking about Parappa.
Do you have like a best memory of Parappa or something? What was the best part of that?
Well, the final level of the game, the concert, like...
Oh, yeah.
This is the final, like, I Gotta Believe song, where he's like, I gotta believe.
Yeah.
I was literally, like, jumping up and down whenever I got to that, and I was doing well, and Parappa's section would be specifically different from, what the guy was singing. So it sounded more like an actual piece of music. It's a fun game. It's weird. Yeah. We can all remember the line, my dad's gonna bite me.
When Jet Baby loves, she loves all of the children. She never lets them die.
Yes.
There was this one night, I don't know what my problem was. I had stayed up like 24 hours for some reason, and I ate like a giant bowl of chili. Amber made like this chili, so I had like a stomach full of chili, no sleep, and we put on DDR, and for some reason I got like a fourth wind or a third wind or whatever. And I realized the pun there because I ate all that chili, but I mean, I was just going crazy on the dance pad, sweating, jiggling with chili, half asleep, and it was amazing. And then I would go and stand by my vent.
Yeah.
Because it would blow cold air on me, and I was like dripping with sweat, but good times,
I
memories.
think that for my own personal recommendation, just as far as rhythm games go, if you have not played Elite Beat Agents, which is a DS game. I know you first need to acquire a DS to play it, but if you have a DS or you got a DSi now, it is not only a superb rhythm game, it is probably one of the most touching, exciting feelings you've had, like playing a rhythm game with story. At first, it starts off just goofy. The Elite Beat Agents are like cheerleaders. People need to do something. They need help from the agents. The agents come and do the dance to help them accomplish their task. But there comes a point where suddenly you're doing You're the Reason in My Life. That's Chicago. Inspiration.
Right,
and that episode is really kind of like sentimental, and it's about like this kid who lost his dad, and you're helping him through it. And then, after all that is said and done, the planet's invaded by aliens, and everybody's awesome. Enslaved, and the aliens hate music, so they ban it. and then like you have to fight back with them, and it's just like the most amazing thing when you're taking them on. they're doing jumpin' jack flash from like the Rolling Stones, and you're just like doing all these complex things. Yeah, really amazing game. I highly recommend it if you're looking for just a fun DSi game that you can pull out, play, put away.
There are more rhythm games to be had than just Rock Band, so check some of those out. If you eBay Busta Groove or Parappa now, you're probably going to pay like $50-$60 for it. I'm not going to lie to you, but classic soundtracks.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you for listening. If you would like to let us know some of your geeky memories growing up, you may do so. Our website is growing-up-geek.com. You can leave us comments underneath the shows, or you can, on the right side, you can click on our email address, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. I think that's going to do it. Oh, also follow Rob on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGRob.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So that's going to do it for this week. Once again, my name is Brad.
You gotta believe.
And we'll catch you next week.